Hello, everybody. I'm here to talk to you about Chapter 12, Substance Abuse. Let's get started on that. Oops, let's go back to the beginning first. Okay, so we're getting to the end of the book here. We are on Chapter 12, Substance Abuse. So some basic stuff. Basically, there are a lot of people in the United States that use drugs in a way that is not prescribed by a doctor. Tobacco and alcohol are also major issues. They are not necessarily drugs, depending on your way of looking at it, but for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to include them. Okay, so in your book, there is quite a bit about the historical background, and this is going to come up a little bit as we discuss, especially what schedule which drugs end up on. There's a lot of interesting history around how some drugs end up on Schedule 1 and some end up on Schedule 2. It's very interesting. So most recently, the thing that has, let me put it this way, it's so recent that it was not actually even on the slide, that legalization of recreational marijuana, not just medical marijuana, has become pretty widespread. It's the case in many states. Understand that federal laws and state laws are not in agreement on all of these things. So you can be living in a state where marijuana is legal for recreational use, but understand that federal law is still, you can still get in trouble federally. So you need to be a little bit careful about all of that stuff, and just sort of understand how that all works together, especially if you're going to work in this field, because it can get a little bit sticky. Oh, I also want to point out, CCSF has a cannabis studies program. We have like a cannabis studies degree. It's brand new, just like social work is. They were launched at the same time. They're both in behavioral sciences. You should go over and check that out. Okay, so some basic terminology. So drugs, any chemical substance that that alters the body's functioning. That's a lot of things, right? And some are minor and some are not minor, and some are psychoactive, so they work on your brain, and some of them don't. So, you know, it's a very broad category, and understand that when we say drug use, we're not talking about judging anything. We're just talking about like literally putting a substance in your body. The next two terms, drug misuse and substance abuse, are have some subtle differences. So understand that drug misuse is about the inappropriate use of drugs, but substance abuse is not quite the same thing. So sort of by definition, substance abuse involves misuse, but not all misuse is substance abuse. So, for example, let's say you have an extra Vicodin left over from your, you know, surgery or something, and you take it for fun. That is drug misuse. It is not substance abuse. Now, let's say you have 50 leftover Vicodin from your surgery, and you start taking them, and they, you know, make it so that you can't go to work. They make it so that you are, you know, driving under the influence, and you crash your car and you get fired, and all of that substance abuse, right? So those two things are not the same. So understand the distinction. Okay, so addiction. Again, there's addiction and chemical dependency, not exactly the same thing. So addiction, chemical dependency falls under the addiction umbrella. So it's one type of addiction, but there are lots of types of addiction that don't have anything to do with chemicals. So chemical dependency is about literally substances, but there are lots of types of addiction that don't involve them. So there's addictions to gambling, there's addictions to sex, there's addictions to all sorts of things that are psychological only. Your phone comes to mind. Okay, so the types of drugs. This is where the laws get sort of sticky on the federal level. These are federal categories. The schedules are, there's a lot of politics in what ended up on what schedule and how. So, and also how things get moved around. So I think probably in the next 10 years, we will see marijuana come off of Schedule 1, because if you think about the definition of Schedule 1, which is that there's no medical use, there's high potential for abuse, it just doesn't make sense. Like you can abuse marijuana, absolutely, 100% true, but there are medical uses, and it's unlikely to abuse it. So like it doesn't really fit there, but again, there's a lot of politics around this. So Schedule 2. I was surprised to learn that cocaine is a Schedule 2 drug. Cocaine, so I had to look it up. It's a numbing agent. They use it to for like nasal surgery and stuff like that, which I thought was very funny. But yeah, so cocaine is apparently a Schedule 2 drug. Who knew? And marijuana is a Schedule 1 drug. Okay. And then the other schedules make a little more sense. Schedule 3 is about prescription and dependence, and it's a little fuzzy about how dangerous some of these are. It's sort of the catch-all category for a lot of things. And then when you talk about Schedule 4 drugs and lower, it's not as serious. It doesn't mean that Schedule 4 drugs can't become addictive. There are lots of you can become addicted to anything, really, anything. So it's not that, it's that it's less likely. So all right, let's move on. All right, so the psychostimulants, the essentially amphetamines, right? So you are, again, in talking about categories here, under the umbrella. So stimulants is the umbrella, psychostimulants, amphetamines are under the umbrella, cocaine, heroin, opioids, not amphetamines, but they're also stimulants. Okay, so are you sensing a theme here? So psychoactive drugs, marijuana, all under the umbrella of hallucinogens. And there's lots and lots of hallucinogens. And shrooms are hallucinogens, for example. I'm not sure why they're not on here. And acid, lots and lots of hallucinogens. Okay, so depressants. The most common depressant that you're going to see, why is it not on the slide, is alcohol, right? Alcohol is 100% a depressant. If you are somebody who is taking another medication that is a depressant, you're going to see a big label on that bottle about alcohol, and that's why, because when you combine depressants, you can die. So don't do that. Be very, very careful about what you mix alcohol with. It can become very dangerous very fast. Okay, so steroids and human growth hormones. This is sort of a concerning statistic, honestly. 7% of male 12th graders had used steroids. Steroids are pretty serious. So, they have all sorts of impacts on your body and everything. So it's really problematic, actually. That's a very concerning statistic. Okay. So historically, the belief has been that dependence and addiction is a moral failing. Uh, we're moving away from that, but there are still plenty of people who believe that. So, it is not a moral failing. Let's just be clear. Addiction is a combination of all sorts of things, but moral failing is definitely not one of them. Okay, so as with anything, uh, actually, I think I'm going to pause here and make a different video to do the second part of this. Thank you.